Welcome to Adventures at Any Age, the YouTube channel that encourages everyone, particularly senior citizens, to get out and enjoy outdoor adventure. My name is Jerry, and I'm the senior camper who decided in my mid-80s to modify my minivan and take off on a month-long van camping trip. That trip was so much fun and such a joy to share with my friends on Facebook, I started this YouTube channel to share information and tips that might encourage others to pursue their own outdoor adventure, whatever that may be, and wherever that might take them. Hello everybody, I'm really happy to bring you our second video in the Adventures at Any Age channel series. This video is about dispersed camping, and I'm going to talk about what it is, how it differs from established campground camping, the pros and cons, and there are some pros and cons to dispersed camping, and why I used dispersed camping exclusively on a recent travel camping trip I made from Southern California back here to Wisconsin. So come on aboard and we'll talk about it. So what is dispersed camping, or boondocking as it's frequently called? Well, it's camping on large tracts of ground that are designated by either the Forest Service or the Bureau of Land Management as dispersed camping areas. And that means that you get to pick your own campsite. You're not assigned a specific campsite on dispersed campgrounds. And that differs markedly from established camping, where you have a specific campsite. And more importantly, you have amenities, which you don't have in dispersed camping. You don't have fire rings, you don't have picnic tables, you don't have toilets. You have to bring your own equipment, your own toilet facilities with you. They also differ from established camping in that you don't need reservations and they don't cost anything. Dispersed campgrounds are substantially different than established campgrounds, and those are the two major types of camping facilities you deal with in van camping. So what are the pros and cons of dispersed camping? Well, the pros are you get a lot of privacy because everybody gets to pick their own campsite. It means you don't have to camp right next to somebody else, and somebody else doesn't need to camp right next to you. They're also tend to be in more natural areas. There's no built-up infrastructure such as you'd need in an established campground. So they're great places to get close to nature and kind of chill out. They have those advantages and some others, but principally that's what it is. Now, there's also some cons about dispersed camping, and in some cases they take some people out of the mix, because dispersed camping, number one, is less accessible, typically. It's usually in remote areas that are not served by major highways, in some cases by even paved roads, equipment. The main feature, though, is that the roads accessing them sometimes require vehicles that have more off-road capabilities than regular street vehicles. And actually, that's almost the case in my minivan. There's some places I can't go with this minivan. I have modified it so that I have more road clearance. I've modified it so that I can get pulled out if I get stuck. But in reality, I'm only two-wheel drive, and that does make some areas inaccessible to me for dispersed camping. So why did I choose dispersed camping for my travel camping trip? Well, because it was a travel camping trip, which meant I was going from point A to point B, and getting to point B was a priority. Camping was the luxury in between. Now, that meant I didn't want to have to be on a schedule if I didn't want to be. The other type of camping I do is called destination camping, and that's going to a place to enjoy that campground, and that's the priority. Travel to and from is secondary. But in this case, since I had to be back on a specific date, I chose to do my camping at dispersed sites because I knew that I had flexibility in my schedule. I could travel the blue highways. I could stop at a campsite for a couple nights if I wanted to. And when I went to a campsite in the evening, I could chill. It was going to be quiet. I wasn't going to be around a lot of people in a campground or a motel. And I could just kind of recharge my batteries overnight and make the rest of the trip in relative ease. That's why I chose it. So when I finally took off on the trip, I left on a Friday afternoon from Southern California and traveled to Williams, Arizona the first night. That was kind of a long day driving, but I planned to go to Kingman initially. A heat wave in the area convinced me to go to higher altitude, so I went to Williams, where it was about 5,000 feet and very comfortable. That campsite was about a mile off the freeway. Pretty good road getting in, but it was a road with difficult berms on the sides, so I had to find a place where I could get off the road. I finally located one about a mile down. Very little traffic on that dirt road. In fact, I think only one vehicle all the time I was there. Nice campsite. It was just an overnight, so I pitched camp and got up the next morning, had my coffee, and looked back towards the west and had one of the nicest views of the whole trip. It was about 40 miles across that forested plain towards the west. I left early that morning and drove about 80 miles towards Grand Canyon and got up there before noon and was able to do some exploring around the area, and I found a very nice dispersed campsite close to an old airport near Grand Canyon Village. It turns out I didn't see anybody else on that whole tract of dispersed camping area. So I'm pretty sure I had the whole thing to myself both nights I stayed there, because I did stay there 2 nights. It was so comfortable, I decided to stay a second night, and also I wanted to do some video work to finish up my first video on this channel, and to do some drone flying for it. Now, that's an important point I didn't make earlier, but you can fly a drone in most dispersed camping areas because they're not on regular campsites, which don't allow drone flight. You're not in a wilderness area, you're not in a national park. When I left there 2 days later, I stopped by Grand Canyon, but it turned out, and I had totally forgotten this, that it was Memorial Day, which is not a good day to go to Grand Canyon. There's chock-a-block full of tourists from everywhere. So I headed up through Monument Valley, which is one of my favorite places ever, for just a lot of reasons. Stopped at the Four Corners Monument, which I've never stopped at before, a monument put up there by the Navajos, at the joining of Arizona, Utah, New Mexico, and Colorado. And when I got up to Colorado, I drove up to Cortez, and that's where I missed my campsite there. I just couldn't find it. Planned on one near Cortez. I ended up driving north of there up into the San Juan National Forest, north of Dolores, and found a wonderful campsite up there. But this is the one that makes the point that you really have to be careful about your access road. Because as soon as I turned down this 2-track trail, I realized that I better stop and walk ahead. It looked like one of those that could get worse as it went farther in, and I've been on those before, and it is not fun. While you still can turn around, you stop, get out of your vehicle, walk up the trail as far as you need to find out you can either get through or you find a campsite. That's what I did. It was passable. I found a campsite, nice little campsite, set up that night, had a nice breakfast the next morning, did some hiking there, farther up the trail so I could see if there's any more campsites that I might want to go to in the future. Turns out there were. And then turned around, headed back, and drove all the way across southern Colorado that day. Long day, through Wolf Pass and a lot of other areas, beautiful 2-lane highway. Couple stops at coffee shops to meet people, something I really like to do on these blue road trips. And then get to Walsenburg, Colorado, in time to make the short jaunt up to Pueblo, where my motel reservation for the trip was. I usually try to schedule a motel every 4 or 5 days so I can take a shower, clean up. Well, I wasn't on that freeway more than 10 miles when I had a flat tire. Given the delay from the flat tire and the fact that bad weather was moving into Kansas and Nebraska, I made the rest of the trip a motel and freeway trip, which was a good decision because I got back in time to make my meeting, and the whole trip was really successful in those terms. I achieved what I was looking to do. This was the first time I ever planned a trip exclusively with dispersed camping. So there's some interesting results in my mind from that. And I like to, at the end of a trip, kind of catalog what went well and what maybe didn't go well. And because that also serves as a checklist for the next trip, I'm going to share that with you, the what went well part. And so what did go well and what do we want to emphasize in the future trips? Well, one thing is it's important to plan for alternative locations. In this trip, 2 out of 3 times, I ended up going to an alternative. Second rule is get to your site on time to get everything set up before it gets dark. Now, that means not only your primary site, but also any alternatives that you have. You want to get there and not have to hunt around for a campsite in the dark. Download online maps before you go offline. Nothing quite as frightening as getting out of cell service and finding out you don't know where you are and you don't have a GPS. Also, check weather reports online before you go offline. Weather reports and fire reports if it's fire season where you are. Those are probably important to have, as well as some offline communication capability yourself for calling for help or notifying your friends and loved ones that you're okay or that you're not okay, and emergency numbers if you do need help. So the other rule on my list is one that kind of came to play on this trip, and that is if you're faced with a suspect road or trail, scout it out. Take a look before you go up there and get yourself into a place where you can't get out easily. Those are the big rules. I don't want to make too many because they start getting trivial after a while. I hope you enjoyed this. I'm going to have some additional comments right after this about our upcoming programs. And I'm hoping that if you like this program, you'll hit the like button, maybe even subscribe button. I'd like to look forward to seeing you again. So thanks for coming along. Hang on. I'll be right back with the follow-up comments. So before we wrap this video up, there's one more piece of information I want to give you. And that is concerning an app. It's called Watch Duty. For those of us that live in fire country, it's an invaluable resource because it tells us where fires are, where they're going, and how bad they are. So if you're going dispersed camping in boondocking in some area where there's a chance of fire, highly recommend that you use it. With that, we're about done with this video, and I'm getting started on the next one, which is a description of the project that modified this minivan into a camper van. I think you'll find it interesting. So take care. Look forward to seeing you when that comes out. And this senior camper is going camping.